It is time for Verbal Tap. We wanted to do just a quick update on continuing to stand for what's going on in the country right now, which is Black Lives Matter and police reform in addition to this crazy pandemic. But right now we're sort of focused on what we can add a voice to. I said it last week, but I'll throw people at 8can'twait.org. We're seeing meaningful change, and we're already seeing it in Minneapolis, which is a credit to just the millions of people around the world protesting. Raph.
Yeah, so if I could just get you guys to do us a solid, I'm sure you heard about the terrible things that happened at 10th Planet Long Beach. I had an interview with our pal, Chai Sursuit, and he's the owner of that gym. It was vandalized. It took heavy property damage. It will not have its insurance cover it. And one of the things that he said in the interview was, hey, if you got a gym, look into what kind of insurance you've got, because I don't want my mistake to be your mistake. And one thing that has been phenomenal about our community is people have stepped up and they have donated to a GoFundMe. It is put together by our friend from Mat Therapy, Donna Gonzalez. So it has already raised over $70,000. But I highly encourage you guys to go to that GoFundMe, give what you can, because they are a vital part of our community, and we want to make sure that we are doing our part to continue to put the attention on gyms, and so that people have a place to train whenever all of this nonsense starts to cool down. And it will. God willing, it will. Jesus Christ, can it be any faster, though? But we send all of our attention over this week to our good friends over at 10th Planet Long Beach. 10P 4L.
Is the moment UFC fans around the world have been waiting for. It's time!
Because he was grappling, Raph. We were just watching fights, and you and I did it alone, which means it is time for Verbal Tap, the show that proves fighting easier from outside the cage or on the live stream. We were on the grappling hour. How are you, Raph Esparza?
I'm great. You know, I'm rested. I took a day off-ish and feel good.
Today's guest definitely needed a day off after his bullshit of a weekend. Mr. Tackett, welcome back, sir.
Hello, nice to have me back. Appreciate it, guys. Yeah, it's a busy weekend, but yeah, glad to be back.
What were you doing? Raph said you were fighting. I was like, him?
Yeah, we actually went down to Dallas on Thursday, and the boys competed in the Who's Number One event, Fight to Win and Flow Grappling put on, and then we drove from there to Houston, Texas, and I competed there on the Third Coast Grappling Geek Tournament.
And who's number one? Was it Nelly? Who's number one?
Yeah, so Cody and Andrew both won their Who's Number One matches, so I guess they're number one.
And Kev, here's an interesting
they're number
factoid.
one. What a generational difference, Raph. We're just giving away participation number one. Sorry, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, both Cody and his brother won, which is interesting because Cody won against Alec Balding in what was reported to be a very, very good match. And then you've also got one Andrew Tackett, who won back-to-back matches, Kev.
Oh, how do you do that? I guess they were like, somebody else won a number one who was like, wait, I'm number one. He's like, fuck that. And they just fought it out, or was it scheduled?
So I think that someone dropped out of a match and they were left without an opponent. So my brother filled in with back-to-back matches. So he just like fought and then stayed on the stage, and the next person walked out, and then he fought him.
Did he beat both? Did he beat both?
Yeah, he won both.
How do you take him off the stage at that point? It's like, well, let him fight one more. Who else wants to go?
Keep going till the death, right?
Till a loss, at least. I think it's fair.
Now, William, hold on.
Hold on. Go ahead, Raph. Sorry.
This is important to note because I'm a little peeved at this. He didn't get a second walkout?
No, he did not get a second walkout. He stayed out on the stage, and they just welcomed the next opponent.
No, that's a terrible idea. You should get another walkout.
Don't you think that's a little scary? It's a little scarier to me to just stay up there.
I don't know. They made it pretty cool. They were like, and his next opponent. and then they like made that person walk out. So it's pretty neat.
I mean, that's very nice. And I know that, again, the good folks over at Third Coast Grappling aren't opposed to trying to put a bounty on your brother's head specifically. But
so this was actually Who's Number One, which this was run by Seth.
no,
Seth
I know which ones I'm talking about here. I'm just
okay.
I'm talking about the poor choice to not give the young man a second walkout, because it feels like a missed opportunity for him. Also, if we're just being honest here, Who's Number One is the weirdest name for any grappling event that I can think of. Kevin, it usually reminds me a little bit of the Austin Powers, who does number 2 walk for? That's every time I hear Who's Number One, that's what I think of. So anyway, but yes, we
it
heard
turns
good
out
things.
number 2 works for number 1, and his assistant also number 1 at this tournament.
So anyway, that brings us to Third Coast Grappling Day, which was your time to shine. And it was an intense tournament. Again, by all accounts, we were watching fights. We were keeping updated on it. Tell us about your match, man.
Yeah, it was pretty action-packed from start to finish. I faced Pedro Moreno from Gracie Baja West Chase, I believe. And he just outpointed me in the match, was able to get the better grips and kind of just stay ahead the whole time, and ended up winning via tech fall. So it was a good match, really exciting, and had a lot of fun being out there and battling it out in the gi. So it was a cool match.
Did you get the chance to watch other matches there? Because, you know, that's one of the first events that we're really starting to like bring people in, right? Like that was there was some audience there, correct?
Yeah, there was a small audience. I think there was maybe a little bit less than 100 people there. So it was a decent turnout, but the matches were great. You know, Roberto Jimenez had a lot of shocking performance there, like always. You know, he went out there and subbed Ibamar, and then he subbed Pedro as well, and then he actually did really well against Batista in the finals. And yeah, it was, really good matches, real good matches.
So, Kev, this is where I should inform you of.
By the way, I was a little surprised to hear that.
There's a little bit of malarkey here that I heard through rumors, because I saw Cody put up the fact that Jake Watson got beat in some kind of eating. Is it a pancake eating contest? And also, why is there a contest for eating at the end of the night?
Okay, so that's the second question is beyond me. I have no idea why the boys decided to do that. They're just crazy in their own ways, but yeah, Andrew actually beat Jake Watson in a pancake eating contest. It wasn't just pancakes, because they had like eggs and biscuits and sausage and stuff like that too, but it was definitely a majority of pancakes, and Jake ended up tapping out. Actually, they both tapped out, but Andrew ended up eating more than he did. So
now here's the interesting part, because I've heard rumors there may be a referee's decision on this one, because I heard there might have been something that tainted that result. Do you care to speak about it, or would you like me to bring up what I potentially know?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay,
Andrew was taking every single little edge he could get over Jake. Like, he kept stealing all the syrup for the pancakes, so Jake was forced to eat dry pancakes. And then he was like stealing all of Jake's water too, because Jake was chugging water because he was, eating dry pancakes, and Andrew kept taking his water.
Kev, I will tell you, this is not the intel that I have. Now, you're not in charge of your brother, so I will tell you this. You are a good brother. You're a good sibling here, because I have it on good authority to know that these results could be contested in a food court of law. But I will not bring that up here. I will talk to your brother specifically about that in a future interview that I'm sure I'm going to eventually have to get to. I think every time I run into him, I'm like, you and I are going to have to interview at some point. And he's just like, yeah, cool. That'd be great. Yeah, I know. So
you should get Jake and Andrew on an interview at the same time if you just want to see some craziness.
I think Cody was telling me that the two of them together are a lot.
Oh, it is a lot to handle. I mean, Andrew has a lot of energy, and especially when he's around new people, a lot of energy, yeah.
So, did you get the chance to then watch the fights?
of my tournament at the Third Coast.
Well, I'm saying the fights that you had predicted, the UFC fights. I know you were a busy schedule, so I didn't know if you had the chance to actually watch some of those.
So sadly, we were watching the matches, and I had to leave to go compete myself. So I ended up not being able to see the later matches. I only got to see a few of the early ones. So I got to see a few of them, and I got to see the results and stuff, but nothing too much.
Let's see if we can fill you in here. Kev, how would you describe Amanda Nunes?
As, okay, well, let's just use Andrew, for example. Let's say Jake had decided to go to the ground for that syrup. It sounds like Andrew might have taken some local instrument like a fork and stabbed Jake just to cause enough damage like in Gladiator when he shivs him before the match. Just whatever you're thinking of in terms of someone jumping on their opponent, turn it up to 11. Nunes came out and just decided, I will beat the living shit out of this woman for 5 rounds. And to, oh shit. Hold on.
Felicia Spencer's
credit. I was thinking Felicia, you'd think I'd know. To Spencer's credit, she took it for 5 rounds. So that girl is hard to beat up, but 50-45, 50-44, 50-44. That is not a close decision.
No, that is not a close match at all.
Now, Will, you were mentioning that, you didn't get the chance to see it. When you heard the scorecard right now, it sounded a little bit of shock and awe. I wish I could truly tell you how impressive her performance was, but in a month, when this comes out for free on your ESPN app, if you have it, I won't ask you where you find your stuff, but if you get the chance to rewatch that fight, just look at how much fun she's having, and then understand, and I don't know that I shared this with Kev, that she literally broke part of her leg and you couldn't even tell, so that she had one of her coaches give her a piggyback ride all around for the rest of the night. None of us knew she was injured until she made it to the post presser.
Wow. Yeah, I did not know that. But she's a tough woman, I guess. She's
Kev,
insane.
It was very similar to the Chappelle sketch where he's Diddy and he gets a piggyback ride out of the room. That was Amanda Nunes at the end of that evening.
I did see the photos. She had the same happiness look. There's some great piggybacks in cinema history for TV. There's a great Parks and Rec reference when Andy Dwyer starts giving them out. It really, there is nothing you can say and be taken extremely serious and dangerously, which is funny because she's so crazily dangerous. But when you put her on a piggyback, it's like, oh, she's lovely. She's just like us.
So let me ask this then, Will. What fights did you get to see?
I only saw the first 3 fights. What was the one that got ended with the leg kick?
So that was Alex Perez, a SoCal native, who kicked to the calf of his opponent.
Cheese for
and yes, for
Raf's head twin, just cranium size wise.
Yes, I have a very large head. If you guys really want to see something
so
funnier, then you will see an episode of Early Late Night where my giant head gets a haircut. But that's not important. I would tell you this, Will. It was very, very yikes to see live because those things just sneak up on you.
Yeah, that was the last match that I saw on the show, but it was like, that was insane to see that leg kick. That was so painful.
And then I'm sure you also saw in the very early preliminary cards, you had Devin Clark pull and rally together to go and beat Alonzo Menafield, and then Herbert Burns. Talk about running in the family.
Right. I mean, those were such good matches. I was so impressed by Devin Clark, the way he just gritted through and just kept coming. It was a real good fight.
Do you often, when you're watching fights, because I don't know this for me all that often, I'm not a competitor like you, do you ever try to correct or like you see something grappling wise and you go,
Yeah, I feel like I do that too much when it comes to like grappling in MMA. Honestly, their grappling isn't like, I mean, it's of course not as high level as like the grappling that we're used to watching.
Sure.
But You just see so many small mistakes, and you're like, you know, constantly
Because
correcting it.
Kevin and I were watching a couple of these fights. There were definitely moments where we saw back takes that were not the best, but we will say that Aljamain Sterling had quite the impressive forced back take.
Back take of the year. Forced back take of the year. It's hard to get someone to double over their knees.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
I think it is.
Go back and watch that then.
You're gonna want to. He'll impress you. Just or Sandhagen will depress you. Either way, it's one of the. It's the best. The way I can explain it is like back takes before we realized ripping someone over their knees was terrible. But back when it was just like, well, that's how you take them down. I don't know what to tell you. It looks like that.
It's that thing whenever the kids do it in the kids class, you're like, oh,
yes,
Exactly like
and everyone white knuckles it until we're like, oh, they're made of rubber. Oh my God, thank God. Okay, somebody go tell Timmy not to do that again.
Yeah, Timmy, don't do that to an adult, please. Don't break it.
And William, I would tell you this. I think if you do want to go see this, it's consistent with what I told Kevin might happen, which is I believe there is a highlight of Matt Serra seeing Sterling's win and screaming all the way from his private viewing to the Apex Center as to how loud and proud he was of that young man. So that was something to behold. Was there any fight in particular that you were nervous about? Because you go away, you go to compete, you do your own thing. But when you put bets on the line, is there one that you were worried about as you went to go compete, or you're just like, I'm not so sure about that one now that I've said it out loud?
I was pretty confident. I mean, I didn't know a lot about all the fighters that I picked, but most of the fighters that I knew that I picked, like educationally, then I was pretty confident.
Okay, all right. Well, Kev, should we get around to kind of circling what the kids should know?
Fine. I'll say this. I'm still not sure I agree with the decisions from the night. I thought there were some suspect ones. I certainly thought the Caceres decision, while I'm on record saying it was a great one, would like to say it was terrible now. And I feel the same way exactly with the Menifield-Clark. I really thought Menifield won that with those early rounds, Raph. So with that said, I still would have gotten my ass kicked because he got 10 of the 11 fights correct, and I did not get that many correct. I got 6 correct. So if those 2 decisions had gone my way, we're looking at 8-8, and I wouldn't have felt good about it. Plus, previously the Caceres thing was a real one-sider. So I guess he wins, Raph. That's what I'm saying.
That's good. We should possibly point out here. Now, William, this is kind of like getting a 1590 on the SAT. Kev, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody's ever gotten a perfect score.
No one has ever crushed them all. Even the great Dan. Not everyone. No one's ever perfected it.
But you were close, kid. That was 10 is a very, very respectable number, especially when you say that you had some that were...
Sorry, there were 12. There were 10 of 12.
Correct. Especially when you say there are some that you're not as educated on. So I would tell you that you did quite a good job, all things considered.
Well, thank you.
Beginner's luck. This is a clear case of... Raph, this is tough. This is not... Tackett, you're probably not going to understand this reference in quite the fervor I would need you to, but I'm a Keenan truther, and that's like being a Backstreet Boy fan or an NSYNC fan. You simply can't go on air saying the other one is now the greatest. So, and this is a compliment to you. You're like Hanson or Shawn Mendes in this example if I'm really going to ruin my reputation.
He has no idea what you're talking about.
Perfect. So, what music are you into? Is it not boy band pop? I should ask before I start making metaphors.
No, I know Shawn Mendes. I mean, I'm kind of into really anything. I'm not picky when it comes to music at all.
All right, okay, so you weren't like, I'm exclusively country, and I was going to be like, all right, I'm Tim McGraw. No, that doesn't work. So the big thing to take away here is I owe you a long-standing exposition that you've surpassed Keenan as the greatest youthful grappler prospect we've ever had, and I'm prepared to make the case. Spoiler alert, your brother's competitive edge will make an entrance, because I want to ask you where you fell on the syrup guidelines. You calling that fair play, or is your brother, tampering with the ballots?
I mean, when it comes to the syrup, I took as much syrup as I needed before he got his hands on it, because I knew he just ruins pretty much anything he touches.
See, Raph, this is where it's like he's honestly the Batman of the group, and but he still has the pressure. So it's like Scar, but motivated. It's a better, healthier relationship. It's gonna be good. I'm ready.
Well, let me put this to you guys real quick. We've got a few little topical discussions from this evening. I understand you're a competitor, so I already kind of have an idea of where you're going on this. But William, did you happen to get knowledge over the weekend that one Conor McGregor has retired?
No, I did not hear that.
Well, probably because anybody that you know that knows anything about MMA or grappling who would have told you probably just goes, he retired today. He'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like the whole thing with that is I think that he's probably just going to come back. He's just doing it for drama, get people to kind of look at him. I mean, Gordon pretty much did the same thing. Said like he was retired and stuff and kept making jokes about it and then really never retired.
His was sadder because it was an F-150 and not a Lambo. But this was the weird part with the Conor thing is it's right. But that's the perfect parallel. This is exactly what Gordon did with way less fanfare and a lot younger. Because truthfully, it's like, Gordon, you're like 9. What are you talking about? Take a break, have a drink, and then get back to it in a few months, buddy. What are you going to do? Start working at Blockbuster? They're closed. This one, for me, we saw Conor hitting the like spider bag sensor thing that he's a big fan of. And they're showing footage. They're like, he's back at it. He's talking smack with done multiple people, really, not just fighters, but boxing, MMA, some football. So I don't understand why this weekend he decided to. Does this have anything to do with like Jon Jones and all the fighters being mad at Dana?
Ding, ding. All right, now let's go ahead and say this. What do you think is a fair amount of money, William? Because you're young, but you know about fighting. You know about grappling.
Apparently he does. 10 out of effing 12, Raph. Damn it.
But I'm just going to put this out there. What do you think is a fair price point if Jon Jones is going to go up a weight class? Like, what do you think a comparable salary for a guy who's been tenured with the UFC for about 12 years or so and has had big mainline UFC prize fights? Just ballpark me. What do you think is a fair figure for him?
I mean, I don't know what he normally gets paid, but
okay.
I mean, I would think it would be pretty much the most out of anybody who's been paid because, one, he's been the champion for so long, too. He'd be moving up into a new category. And 3, he's made the UFC a lot of money. So I don't know what he's normally at as far as budget-wise, but I would think that he would need to be getting paid a pretty penny.
Okay, well, just indulge me. Just tell me what you think it is, because I think you actually might be able to help me illustrate a point here between how much people think fighters make and how much they are actually paid. So just shoot me a figure.
For one match or like a fight deal?
One fight.
One fight? I mean, McGregor's the most paid fighter in the UFC, so I believe that Jones probably would, I don't know, maybe like $250 to show, $250 to win or something like that.
Okay. So Conor McGregor, last couple of contract deals.
And yeah, is the short answer. Like, pretty good guess. That's why John is pissed right now.
That is a fair assessment.
Very good. Yeah.
So apparently Jones, and I think it ranges. Sometimes there's pay-per-view back-end points and all that sort of stuff. Jones is one of the few people who's still drawing 750,000 pay-per-view buys, which especially right now, that's the highest guy they've got left, especially if McGregor's out of the equation. McGregor was reported to earn $3 million that is reported to the Athletic Commission. Now, of course, Jon Jones doesn't bring in Conor McGregor numbers, but he's saying, all right, well, if I'm one of the only people who can draw high, then pay me more, especially now that pay-per-views are through this weird ESPN sort of a deal. So if you're saying $250K and Dana's saying, he's made like a whole bunch of money. He's made a whole bunch of money. And it seems that people are floating around a figure of closer to $2 million. Do you think, as a competitor, that is a fair price point given the climate of MMA compared to other sports or even just in our own?
I mean, Jones is like the best of all time. I believe that that's what he should be getting paid. But I know that like combat sports is not where it needs to be as far as MMA wise. And, they make good money and stuff, but I know that the athletes aren't paid that high on average. So, I mean, I think that $2 million would be great for someone like that because he's like the greatest of all time. But sadly, I don't think that's what he gets paid.
Yeah. So Dana has been saying that he was asking for Deontay Wilder money, trying to make him look bad. Kev, would you think that is in the ballpark?
I think it should be, and this is difficult. Jon Jones is the worst person to have this conversation about because there's part of me that's like, I don't know, man. Is there another CEO or fight promoter that would have tolerated all of this? I don't know. So it's difficult, but ultimately I can't let that shroud the point, which is that the UFC has underpaid their top performing fighters significantly. So I'm not even going to answer the Deontay Wilder because boxing does such a better job of sharing the gate with the fighters. I don't remember what the number is, but between I'd have to look because I don't want to speak to boxing. I'd rather use NFL or the NBA for an example where the players are guaranteed a certain percentage of the profits of whatever they do. The UFC does not have that. That big caveat means that the UFC brass, who has operated largely in silence and unchecked until ESPN came along, was able to do whatever they wanted. So know that these fighters were fucked and not taken very good care of, and they have never made the percentage share that other major sports and athletes have made. Not even close.
So that's kind of where this is all stemming from. So over the weekend, and this is where we tie it into what happened over the weekend, Conor McGregor, I think, saw what was happening with all of the lower weight belts. And then I think also took into consideration, guess what? If there's no crowd, I don't get a gate. And that might be part of what I'm doing. So at most, if we're talking about no crowds for a whole while with respect to COVID, what is there for me to do? Yeah, screw it. I'm going to retire. So I kind of get that perspective. The perspective that's left from Jones and Masvidal. And we've gotten some people asking me, what do I think about a fighters union? I'm like, I'm for it. Someone should do it. It's just a matter of, when they mention people like Daniel Cormier, I'm like, Daniel Cormier is not going to rage against the machine when both his salary from Uncle Dana and the crafty service table in which caters to his every need at every UFC pay-per-view. I would tell you this, though. I think over the weekend we saw a little bit of a glimpse of Dana White losing the rhetoric war because he was a little cagey with people in the post-presser. When they asked him about it, they said, well, what do you think about Masvidal? If they don't want to fight, they could just go. They don't have to fight. Who needs to fight? So the unfortunate part is they're trying to use the idea that the business model is shifted because of COVID. And I believe one very smart reporter said, it's very interesting to see that they're using the same defense, which understandably COVID has changed things, but they weren't really good about paying people. So when you have people like Jorge Masvidal who say they're only making 12 to 18% of the overall product of the UFC, while at the same time the UFC is talking about record numbers and record highs, we are at a very interesting point whether it could be a breaking point. And what might also come of it is every one of these fighters who's very, very thankful they get one of those shots for dirt cheap, and some of them are only making about $12,000 on some of these big shows to fill in those gaps. You will see the UFC relying on those people who are very thankful for a shot.
The NBA is at 50% to give you a perspective. But Will, you've also worked with a ton of promoters. You know what that life is like. It can be it can be great and bad, right? It's fits and valleys.
Yeah, it can be good and bad. I mean, it depends on what promoter you're dealing with. I mean, it depends on what they see you as value, because every promoter has a different view on you as an athlete. So,
which has to be fun to hear. It's got to always be a fun reminder that it's very much tied to. It's all tied to that. So even in the grappling world,
sure is.
Here's the good news. I think it's an important topic, and I'm glad we got to, kind of talk it with you in particular, because we see you as part of the future, kid. So we're trying to let you know, be firm, stand your ground, all that sort of good stuff. And if things get really bad in the negotiations, throw in your brother. Just say, listen, I'll even throw in my brother for $20 and some syrup bottles.
Extra syrup bottles.
So, Kev, you alluded to the fact that you now have to do a video as a thing to the kid now.
I'm ready for my hot take. It's not even a video. I've started to talk myself into it. And if you're curious when I started to do that, it was around the time that Formiga got knocked out from kicks. I was like, I've made a terrible mistake. Can't lose multiple fights and still pull it out. So that, and frankly, I deserved at least a little bit to lose for not picking Garbrandt because of the neck tattoo. That would hurt. That was a knockout.
Man, that knockout was so nasty. That was one of the best knockouts I've seen in so long.
I agree. I think it's a top. I think we're going to be talking about that one because O'Malley's was effing fantastic and everyone forgot about it. That's how good Garbrandt's was.
I know. It's insane.
So
like
I don't.
Whenever you saw a Korean Zombie get knocked out in the last final seconds of that round, this was that much more epic, just because it was literally right at the buzzer, and it was just fire.
And Kev, just to fill you in the background, later that night, this is I think one of my favorite moments of the post presser that evening, is you have Cody No Love sitting at the table. A reporter asks, hey, who was the better knockout, you or O'Malley? And he goes, it's obviously me. Come on, Dana, give me that $50,000. Come on, man. And then all of a sudden the reporter goes, you did get a performance bonus. And he goes, oh, thanks, Dana.
Oh
So that is one of the funnier moments of the evening. I would also venture to tell you this, though, Kev, and I don't know that William, he may be more up on it than either you or me. Gordon is taking credit for kicking Keenan off of the internet. They had a little spat, and now Keenan has deleted his social media. I would argue, Kev, that the threat of you calling an even younger and more talented prospect a more talented prospect on video is what scared Keenan away.
Yeah, this is another classic example where the Danaher Death Squad's forgetting that while they know how to break legs, we're more media savvy. Keenan heard the call out, knows how much I suck at this, and was like, oh shit, he's not going to be able to beat Tackett. Like, this is the end of me. Got to get out of here. Oh, Gordon's being a tool? Perfect. I'm out.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, because I was talking to Keenan on, I don't have his number or anything, but I talked to him on Instagram Messenger quite a bit. And we were planning to go out there and train with him and stuff. And I was going to get back with him. And literally the day I was going to get back with him, I looked up his Instagram and wasn't there. And I was like, oh, okay.
I mean, to be fair, Gordon's Karen army of Yelp complainers are a lot to handle. And what has become a disagreement between two parties is now a more contested election than even our presidential election. You have people being like, Keenan shouldn't have done that. And it's like, how are you involved in this? And some of the folks who are angry are gym owners. They're saying that Keenan personally attacked them by saying that people should close down their gyms. And I think some of that is conflating their anger towards COVID towards a legitimate concern. Now, I don't know. I don't read every comment that Keenan posts on there, but I can tell you this, telling an army and congratulating yourself that you kick somebody off social media is a whole can of worms that you go to a therapist about and they go, they did that? And what are they doing? And why are they doing this? So it's a very strange thing. But here's the good news. I believe you're younger than both him and Gordon, correct?
Yeah, quite a bit
Well,
younger, actually.
I
Not
don't know
anymore.
if I am, Raph, or was that just to William? So I guess I'll just to Wiz. Okay.
Well, not anymore, kid. You apparently have more emotional maturity than some of the people who have been in our sport for a long period of time. So it is disappointing in one sense, and now Gordon is now getting into street beefs with random Instagram influencers. It's
Oh my
a
God.
strange 2020 is crazy, dude.
Yeah, 2020 is just insane. I keep hearing more and more things happening in 2020. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is the craziest year yet.
But you know what's even crazier? You've got good things going on. What comes up this weekend? What are you doing? Where are you competing? Because we know you're a crazy person. You've already got stuff lined up.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. I have Jits King this Saturday in Clearwater Beach, Tampa, Florida area.
Look
So
out.
I'm traveling out to Florida and putting everything on the line in the 16-man tournament. So I'm excited.
Can we warn you? Do you already know who Josh Starlord Ledoux is?
Yes, I do know
Oh,
Josh.
shit. Okay, perfect. Well, then avoid him at all costs. Stay away from him. He's not trusted and he's unstable. That is all.
That's all. That's all we'll talk about that.
It's a good note because if there's anybody who's going to have a van and candy and try and pull you in as a stranger into it, it's going to be Josh.
So you're probably right. Josh is funny, though. I mean, I haven't known Josh too closely, but
We
Yeah,
just,
I've-
we've worked with him. We like to warn people to avoid.
I think
that.
it's important that people know it.
You could tell him we
So-
said it. You said
Now, if
He'll
he
know.
hadn't bet that we warned you about him, then he's doing his job wrong too. Do you have anything else coming up after that? Because it always seems like you're somebody in most fight promoters' minds that they want to go ahead and continue putting on stuff.
yeah. So I would have something coming on here soon, but I actually I'm just going to plan for the trials. So I'm just going to kind of dip off the deep end or dip off the social media stuff and off competition scene and just kind of focus on the trials up until November. So I think this might be my last one until trials, but we'll see.
That's interesting. Does that help you for trials, kind of getting insular and getting focused on your team? Because, you know, you hear some people say you've got to compete, otherwise you won't be ready. But you obviously have a unique perspective on this. I'm sorry if you have a minute. Do you mind answering?
Oh, no, go ahead. I mean, for me, it's like I like to be ready and like eager to compete. And I like to have time to train. So like for me, like these last few weeks, I haven't really trained a whole lot. You know, I mean, of course I've put in the hours on the mats and in the weight room, but it's just not as much as I know I can because I've been traveling. I got to taper off my training camps, you know, and different things. Cause like this week I'll train up until, you know, Thursday pretty hard. Like Wednesday will be my last hard day of training. And then Thursday is kind of just like a taper day. Friday, I don't really do much. I'm more like cut weight and just kind of like eat light and stuff. And then Saturday I compete, you know, and then Sunday's a rest day and back to it on Monday. So like kind of that whole half of the week was not too much training. So I like to kind of slow it down a little bit, not really mess up my training camps, just kind of train, get better, get bigger, get stronger, healthier, and then hop into a tournament. So we'll see how it goes, especially something that's really important to me because I really want to win the trials. I want to make sure I take it really seriously. So I'm just going to put in as much hours on the training mass as I can.
Fascinating.
To be fair, that's a very mature perspective, one that Keenan Cornelius probably didn't have when he was your age. I'm just saying, I don't know. Can't really compete and say those things. No, I would tell you this. You have a very good head on your shoulders, and I know it is very difficult to tell a competitor, don't compete, because it's in your blood. You know, It's not that you don't want to. I mean, Jesus, your track record says as much. You hit this ground running of 4 straight weekends of competing. So nobody's going to ever accuse you of that. It's just the discipline to say, I know where I want to go next. and to be able to really implement that strategy. I would ask you, though, if the opportunity does come up and we maybe have to see a delay in the trials, would you consider picking something up in that time?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, I might have one tournament before the trials just because sometimes my professor likes me to jump out on the mat if I haven't been on the mat in a while and just kind of get the competition nerves out, kind of get back into the swing of things. So that might be the case. I might hop out there maybe in October, beginning or mid of October, and then, middle of November will be the trials. So I might do that. If the trials does get delayed because of all the corona or whatever nonsense happens in 2020, then, I'll shoot for the February trials and, I'll hit a few tournaments in between there. Maybe like hit a tournament in November and hit one in December. And then again, just take that break again and aim for the trials in February.
Good for you, kid. Yeah, that seems about a good plan. I'm just saying, I think they're going to try and keep trials as close to the schedule as possible. But as you very nicely previewed before I could do the joke, who knows what the next chapters of Jumanji really are? We're still trying to figure out, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have guessed we were where we are today, but here we are, and murder hornets and all the other things that you can possibly think of on your apocalyptic bingo are all possible. I will ask you this. You famously didn't talk much trash to Kevin. You're a sportsman. Is there anything you'd like to say in the mode of sportsmanship that may be good advice for Kevin for his next go round of Over Under Kevin?
I mean, don't ever count against Sean O'Malley.
I deserve that. And you shouldn't either. If I recall, I gave someone some advice, Raph, to get some cool hair. Go look at Sean O'Malley's. Don't be afraid to rainbow pride it out for trials, William Tackett.
Yeah, I don't know about the whole rainbow hair, but
hey, you mock it, but then guess what? When you get that first takedown, because they're busy looking at your hair, you're going to thank your friends over at Verbal Tap in all of your post-fight interviews.
Yes, sir, I will if I end up doing that.
I'm sure it would have been us that gave him that shot speed and ability to take down and submit. The hair color. It's all about the hair color.
Yeah.
Guarantee our fight companion will take 100% credit for anything you do, kid. Well, I got to say this. Kev, do you have any returning and departing words for the young man here?
Can't wait to see you at trials. We'll be metaphorically in your corner, obviously, but you're a blast to watch, and really looking forward to it and rooting for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm going to do my best, and I'll train my hardest, and hopefully we can go out there and win it. So thank you, guys.
No problem. Ladies and gentlemen, the young, the talented, more talented than Keenan Cornelius.
The number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is, please note, the new number is